Good afternoon, guys. Welcome to our webinar, Evolution's webinar on freelancing within the gaming industry. First and foremost, I want to thank you to all of my guests for taking the time to participate in this. Let's kick us off with some introductions. Christopher?
Yes, hello, I'm Christopher. I just recently started freelancing or consulting. I've been in the games industry for about 15 years now. Started out as a character artist, been environment artist, lead artist, and now most recently art director. Worked with a bunch of different studios. Yeah, right now I'm on a contract with King as art people manager.
Perfect, thank you for that. Ksenia?
Hi everyone, I'm Ksenia Koster. I am 34 and I live in Amsterdam. I have been working in the video games for 8 years by now, and I build user acquisition departments for VR games publishers. Currently, I work with Beyond Frames Entertainment in Stockholm.
Fantastic. Mark?
Hi everyone, my name is Mark. I'm 42 years old. I'm from the Netherlands, but I work at King in Stockholm. I've been in the gaming industry on and off since 2003 and a contractor since 8-9 months.
Brilliant. And last but not least, Martina?
Hello everyone, my name is Martina. I live in Poland but work for Avalanche Studios Group in Stockholm as well, in Systemic Reaction Division to be precise. I manage marketing things, so I am a product marketing manager and I work in game dev industry for 4 years now, but recently switched to be a freelancer.
Brilliant. Thank you, everyone, for those quick introductions. So first and foremost, I want to kick us off with a bit of an icebreaker, get us all loose and limber. So the question that I want to ask, really important, everyone's going to be dying to hear this in the chat, is that what is your favorite flavor of ice cream?
I can start with that. I
in.
make my own ice cream, actually. I have an ice cream machine. And yesterday I made pear, chocolate, and canela. How do I call it in English?
Cinnamon.
Cinnamon. Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. And it's delicious.
Nice. Yeah, I'm kind of a chocolate guy when it comes to really anything. So chocolate flavored ice cream, preferably with chocolate bits in it, and if I can, like some chocolate topping. That's how I like it.
All of the chocolate there, then. Christopher, but I really like the mint chocolate chip one with chocolate, of course.
That's good. Yeah, for me, I just like soft ice cream, the soft serve, very basic, nothing on top of it, just basic that. And, I generally don't buy it because once I start eating it, I can't stop. So.
Yeah, I understand that. Okay, so lots of chocolate. Very diverse answers there. Lots of chocolate from two people. Ksenia, I've never even heard of your flavor of ice cream, to be honest with you. It sounds amazing.
Yeah, you'll have to come over.
Yeah, I mean, deal. Okay, brilliant. So thank you for those answers. So sent over some questions for you guys that we're going to be running through. Now, the first one that I've sent over, why did you become a freelancer? So obviously a couple of you are relatively new to the freelancing game. A couple of you have been freelancers for a bit longer. So we're going to have some nice diverse answers there. So does anyone want to kick us off with why they became a freelancer?
I guess I can do that. I actually became a freelancer after my corporate career has hit a roadblock. When the corporate job no longer could offer me any room for growth, that's when I decided to go into freelancing. I made it to marketing director 2 times before I hit 30. And even though, like the path to the top is always exciting, right there at the top, it's A, lonely, B, not super rewarding, at least for me personally. So I switched to freelancing just to have more room for growth. And as a freelancer, I get to learn way more. I have way more input on the things that are being decided. And I just feel that this is something that allows me also to combine a lot of activities and way more of product activities. than was my corporate, very limiting, strictly marketing job.
Brilliant. Anyone else want to jump in?
I can go. Absolutely. I mean, as I mentioned in the introductions, I'm very new. I'm not even 1 month into working as a consultant right now or a contractor, but I do have some previous experience. Like 10 years ago, I worked as a character artist freelancer for a year or two, something like that. And I really liked kind of the freedom, or like Xenia said, I think it's like how it kind of super boosts your learning. Like you meet so many people, you see so many different processes, you get to learn from so many different companies and their findings and their mistakes and everything. So I think it's like for me, it's a great thing to kind of go in and out from, like long-term steady employment, and then doing freelancing for a while to kind of get both of those worlds. And then also like the freedom with having your own company. If I want to, I can take some time off to do some studies and stuff like that, and I can finance that through my company. And so I think there's a lot of good benefits to it. And now also with post-COVID, everybody's much more open to working remotely, which has made it much easier. I mean, I have a family, and before, last time I was sleeping on friends' sofas. I have to move all the way to all the different companies in different places, but now I can just, for the most part, stay at home.
Yeah, I completely agree with Christopher, basically. And one thing that was also very, very positive side effect of switching from being an employee to being a contractor is the increase in income. Can't deny it. It's a very, very good aspect.
Absolutely.
But for me personally, it's also very much the freedom. I just like doing my own thing, and if I just want to stop or just take a month off, then I can do that just like that after a contract. And as an employee, that's so much harder. So that's a big benefit for me.
Yeah, I agree with all of you guys. It's the same for me. I have a 5-year-old son, so moving to another country would be really difficult. So freelancing is the way to go here, because most companies, when you're on a working contract, would like you to relocate. And for me, that would be super difficult. And also the diversity of projects we can work on, it's just amazing. So meeting new people, working on amazing projects, that's something that drives me into freelancing.
I just want to jump on that one. It was extremely important for me because video game scene is not huge in the Netherlands. And if I wanted to continue working with what I like and with the products that excite me, had to do business internationally. And before I was a freelancer, it was way more difficult. And of course, yes, COVID helped.
Brilliant. Couple of questions just jumping in there. So, June, I do see your question about taxes. We're probably going to get into that a little bit later on, so I will come back to that one. But a question that has just been asked by Leonardo. How big is the increase in pay on average? Is there an average hourly rate in Stockholm? I think that's one that I actually may be able to answer along with you guys as well. In terms of the permanent market, I don't know what the average salary is, to be honest with you, because we don't really do that here. So I can't tell you the comparison or anything like that. Obviously, it depends on your role and what you're doing. And like you guys said, the hourly pay is quite nice compared to permanent. I mean, you guys can jump in and tell me and tell the viewers as well what you're getting paid. Well, not exactly what you're getting paid, but in comparison, a little bit. Is it more? Is it significantly more? Is it a little bit more?
I mean, I can say
more than double.
More than double for you.
More than double. But there is, of course, one thing you have to remember. It's that as an employee, it's income to you personally, but now it's income to your company. So you can't just take it out and do with it what you would have normally. You still have to pay a lot of more extra taxes. So it's
And you have
but still, I think it's more than double.
Have to cover vacations, insurance, a bunch of stuff like that. But same here. It's a bit above, like, because I was looking around for full-time positions a little bit before I made this decision, and I know kind of what I'm worth on the market now, and I would say it's between 2 and 3 times more that I invoice every month.
Yeah, it's about 3 times if I take into account that actually, for me, I'm good at accounting. I enjoy it. And this just made me much more capable of running my personal and my business accounts together. It's triple because now I have the flexibility, which I didn't have before as an employee when it just the taxes deducted and that's it. And considering that in video games we consume a lot of hardware, a lot of software, there are very many things that kind of come with your business to your house.
Okay, brilliant, brilliant. So I'll come back to more questions in the chat as we go. Next question that I sent to you guys then. So why do you want to work in the gaming sector?
Oh, I can start with this one. I've studied cognitive science, and I really wanted to combine something that I've studied, which is, for example, computer-mind connection, the user experience, and everything connected to how brain is actually working. How can I connect it to something that we know from our daily life? And then gaming happened, and I found out that there are a lot of connections between cognitive science and game dev industry. So I tried to get into my first company, which was Vivid Games, mobile game company, and I got in, and that's how I started. So that was my purpose here.
I
I can
continue.
go. I mean, I kind of I a little bit ended up in games as a little bit of an accident, but I always were very passionate and interested in kind of creating worlds and creating experiences that engage people. And I think that games is very unique there compared to many other forms of entertainment in the interactivity with it. And I just I kind of I was focused on film, and I ended up getting a job as my first job in the games industry. I tried going back to movies and VFX a little bit, but I ended up coming back to games because I think I get everything I want out of a job in the games industry, really.
For me, it was a bit different. To me, this question is difficult in itself because I never wanted to do anything else but video games. So I was always motivated to join that market, but it was difficult. It was very difficult. There were no such options from where I come from. So I started my career in film as the closest relative, so to say, in being audiovisual, and just worked up until I made it into video games. And I'm doing it because I'm a gamer.
Yeah, exactly. The same applies for me. I've been fascinated with computers since the age of 8. My dad bought this Philips P2000 super old computer, and he got a book from the library with 30 game source codes printed in it, and you just spent half an hour writing the stuff from the book, and you had a game. And I was fascinated with that. I started like tinkling with it, and seeing what would change if I changed stuff. And I was fascinated, and I've never wanted to do anything else than being in games.
Yeah, you reminded me. My dad also got me a PC, but he didn't get me a PC. He just got me parts. And he got a stack of CDs with games. And he said, like, you want to play these? You have to build that yourself. I was maybe 8 or 9, so I assembled my first PC myself. Took me a few weeks, but I was very motivated.
Brilliant, brilliant. I was waiting for somebody to jump in and say, I just love games. I'm a gamer. I want to play games all the time. Okay, brilliant. So on the other side of that then, why have you stayed in the gaming industry?
Yeah,
I can go again.
the question already. It's like, yeah, I don't want to do anything else. I actually, for a very short period, did try other stuff like business to business backends and medical stuff, but it wasn't for me. I didn't like it. I wasn't motivated. So I just I found my way back into the gaming industry, and I don't think I'll ever leave it again.
I think I'm fully on here with Mark because I did a little gig in e-commerce. Did a little gig in femtech, just figuring out, around 30, you want to experiment, figure out if it's really your thing. Just never got the same drive.
For me, it's people. the people that you get to work with, because from marketing perspective, I get to work with everyone, literally everyone, from a programmer to an artist, and all of them have amazing experience, and all of them have different feeling about the game because they do something separately, but at the end of the day we all work on the same product, and each and every feedback is very valuable. So I love people, and they are so creative, and most of my closest friends are from game dev industry because we get each other, and when we talk about work, like, we can't really stop because everyone is working on something exciting. So for me, it's definitely people.
Yeah, I agree. It's such a collaborative environment to work with games. There's just so many parts to it, and they all need to function together. So you get really good at collaborating with people, and also it's the whole industry is just over the 15 years I've been in it. It's just the pace in which things improve and evolve is just so high. It just never gets boring. It's just new things all the time to kind of adapt to. I think that's really, really cool. And first of all, for my part, it's so incredibly creative. And one thing I want to say as well about staying in the industry is that I think just in the past like 10 years or so, it's changed a lot in terms of the old thing where, you know, people were doing these death crunches, and, you know, there were no way for you to have a family in parallel with working with the games. At least in the Swedish game industry, you don't really see that anymore. I think it's much more mature now as an industry. You have, you know, it's been around for long enough to there's quite a lot of people who have families, and, you know, and there's a high competition about the competence as well. So the companies, you know, you can't really survive if you have that really harsh crunch culture anymore. And that's really allowed me to stay with having a family and 2 kids and everything. So, yeah.
Okay, brilliant. Yeah, I think it's a really interesting point, that one, Christopher. Obviously, crunch is such a big word in the gaming industry and has been for such a long time, but it seems that the industry has kind of had a bit of a facelift with stuff like that. And don't get me wrong, people still use the term crunch a fair bit, but it seems that people are, and companies especially, are taking more care of their employees and contractors as well. So it's much less of you can't see your family for a week because we've got a deadline coming up or something like that. Okay, brilliant. So next question then. So which studios have you guys worked for? And could you just give us like a brief description of your experiences working there?
I can start. Sorry. As a freelancer, I've so far only worked at King, but interestingly, I've also worked there as an employee 8 years ago. That's when I moved to Sweden from the Netherlands. So I've seen both sides of the coin at King. And the interesting part for me is that I know I'm there under very different circumstances, but it feels the exact same to me. I have the exact same drive to help the company and to produce good results and do cool stuff for the company. Colleagues treat you the exact same way. There is absolutely no difference at King between being an employee or a contractor. Everybody's always friendly. Everybody's always nice. There are some downsides to being a contractor. There's a lot of benefits as an employee that you're not getting. But yeah, you can take care of it yourself through your own company most of the time anyway. So, and then the weirdest thing recently, actually, is due to Corona, I haven't been at the office much. And for the first time, I had a fika at the office a week ago, and it felt like I was a guest at a hotel or something. It's really, really, really weird. So it's an interesting experience having been an employee and now being a contractor at the same company, but very positive at King.
I'm also very new as a contractor, so I can't say that much. But as I said before, I've been kind of going back and forth between employment and contracting. So I started as a employee, and then I took like 2 years of contracting, and then I've been doing a bunch of years, 11 years or something, as an employee, and now back to contracting. But now I'm with King. But I think it's. But yeah, obviously I've been with a bunch of companies before, and I really think it's like I think it's great to be able to move between it a little bit over your career to kind of get both sides of it, because I think there are unique learnings to both sides of that, and now I feel like I'm ready to take some years of contracting again.
Okay, I guess I can tell about working with TinyBuild. I actually, in my corporate career, I worked with dozens of studios. That was one of the privileges of my position. I was a person who launches games. I still am the person who launches games. I usually join studios around the time that they've got a major launch and they need somebody really fast and really experienced. But the latest one before Beyond Frames was TinyBuild, and they are a very fun bunch. They are extremely fast growing, and you can feel it. It feels like a teenager company when some functions have already developed to its full length and size, and some are still not there. So one day you do this, and the other day you just step 3 steps back and write a newsletter. Because it can happen that there is nobody to do that. Just right now, I was like doing an automated asset production and now a newsletter, because that happens. That's part of the industry and that's part of the job. I never shied away from it. Hands-on work is something that is super rewarding in freelancing. We get to do many things ourselves, at least me. And I really appreciated TinyBuild for being so open and willing to work with freelancers just as if they're staff. There were no lines ever drawn. And to tell you honestly, I've never experienced it as a freelancer. What you said about King, Mark, is pretty much relevant, at least for the companies I worked with.
Brilliant. Martina, what are your thoughts?
I totally agree with Xenia because we both work in marketing. So yes, that's we are needed around launch, I would say, not during the full process of development. However, I was working for more than 3 years for mobile games companies, where usually you don't have 1 or 2 projects or 3. You have 5, 10, or 15 at the same time, where the marketing department is needed for the whole time. Whereas in PC console gaming, game dev, it's not necessarily to have a full marketing team for the whole process of production the game. We are needed usually at the end of production to plan everything for launch and post-launch.
Okay, brilliant. Yeah, I think it's a bit different for you, Martina and Ksenia, because you both come from, now you're working for Swedish studios, obviously, but previously you've worked for studios in Europe, so it's a bit of a different experience for you guys.
In the US, actually, and that's a huge difference. Like working
Yeah.
in the same hour zone is much easier, at least for me. I'm a
Mm.
morning person, and working US hours was pretty grueling. And if it wasn't for the sheer ingeniousness of some of the games that I was releasing there, it would be very difficult to hold up the motivation to pull the hours. But just the pitches sometimes that would come in were enough, like to brighten up an evening.
Okay, brilliant. And the next question that I'm going to ask kind of links to a couple of questions that we got from people who are watching. So I'll go through those questions in a second and see if we can answer those at the same time as this, really. But can someone tell me like what concerns they had about freelancing prior to becoming a freelancer? Might jump to Christopher first, if you don't mind, just because I know you have very recently gone back into freelancing. So you might have the most recent kind of experience doing this.
Absolutely. I mean, it's... I think my greatest worry was because of a burn that I got the first time around. The first time I kind of started my own company to do freelancing, I didn't research it enough. Also, for reasons we don't need to cover here, I started a company in Germany and I don't even speak German. So that made things harder, so to say. So yeah, I burned a little bit there on like all the bureaucracy that I wasn't prepared for. And just the thought of it still stressed me out a little bit. But I mean, luckily, I kind of at least I knew it in advance now, so I made sure to like everything that I could put on someone else, pay someone else to do for me. I did now, so I made sure to get like redovisningskonsult early on that helps me with my taxes and all that stuff, and even helped me set up the company. Then of course, there's always a little bit of that worry that, will I find something new when my contract runs out and all that stuff. But to be honest, as I said, I kind of tested the market a little bit before I decided this, and I also been employing a lot of people recently in my last company. I actually worked where Martina works now at Avalon Studios, Systemic Reaction, and I did hire a lot of people there. And it's not easy to find talent. And knowing that, I felt that if I'm ever going to try it, now is a really good time because the market is just screaming for people. So yeah, I think that's there are some worries, and there were some worries, but I think I was better prepared to handle it now, and also it's a good time to try it out if you want to. That's how I felt, at least.
I completely agree on the whole running a company thing. Since I'm from the Netherlands and I'm living in Sweden, I sort of had the same worries, like, oh, how will it be, and what will the bureaucracy be like? But in hindsight, it was trivial. The Swedish government is organized well enough for everything to be really simple, actually. And I found a friend that is a consultant, and anytime I have questions, I just a consultant accountant. Sorry, I just ask him for help, and it turned out to be fairly straightforward. And once you've done everything once or twice, then you just repeat it every month, and it's not that difficult. So the biggest concern I had turned out to be nothing, really. Just running the company is fairly straightforward.
So my concern was connected to health and my family, because, as you know, usually when freelancer doesn't work, he or she doesn't get paid. So when a kid is sick and has to be taken care of, or I am sick or something, I need to take days off that I'm not paid for. So that was something that was like, what if something happens, right? But I am super lucky because I have a lot of backup inside my family. They are super keen to take care of my family, my son, when something happens. So I am lucky enough to have a lot of help, and together with my husband, we both are freelancers, so we both understand the pros and cons here. There's no situation like, oh, you're on a contract, so now you take days off, right? All of them. No, we are equal and on even page here. So yeah, that was my concern.
Ksenia?
Yeah, that's good for you, Martina. My partner is an employee. He doesn't fully get it sometimes about days off and going like, yeah, you're a freelancer, you're free to do what you want. But that wasn't my biggest concern, actually. When I was becoming a freelancer, it was a bit funny because I really didn't want to. I completely didn't want to. The only reason that actually convinced me was just looking at the numbers, understanding that this is the way that I'm meeting my financial goals. No other way. Employment just doesn't get me there. And my biggest concern was reputation. I know it sounds funny, but freelancers have that flair of digital nomadism that I personally just don't dig, and just didn't want to be associated with that crowd, even though perfect people, nothing against them. But it turned out that my prejudice was completely wrong. Freelancers come in all statuses, sizes, places in the world. It doesn't have to be what my prejudice told me it was. So I kind of humbled down and understood that maybe I should be a bit less judgy.
Okay, brilliant. So I'm going to jump in with some of the questions that we got from the audience there, because they kind of relate to some of the things that were mentioned. I think, Mark, this goes back to what you were saying. So question from Aitor was, what was the paperwork like in order to set up things before you could freelance? Did you do it by yourself, or did you get professional advice?
I did everything myself. I read enough Swedish to be able to handle the Skatteverket and Werksamt websites, and it's as I said, fairly straightforward. It's just a wizard you click through essentially, and at some point they ask you to go to a bank, deposit 25,000 kroner in there, and when you're done, the wizard continues a couple of days later, and at the end you hit finish, and you wait a while, and if tax-wise everything is in order, you get confirmation, you have your AB. It wasn't much more than that. Paperwork was really easy, actually. Everything is digital in Sweden, except for the yearly reporting. That for some reason you have to do by paper. Unless you're a mega corporation, then you can do it digitally. But if you're small, then you have to do that by paper. But anything else is digital. And quite often there are English versions available if you're an expert like me. So that makes it easy.
I'd like to add in there as well that I think it's, Mark, you said that you had an accountant friend. I think for me, at least, I would recommend, because even though it's very straightforward, there are things, at least for me, that I ran into was I don't really understand this, or how do I exactly fill this in, or what does it mean if I fill this in? Can I change it later? Or I want to do this, not exactly this, but do I still click this one? So for me, it was really good to kind of go immediately before I started that process and find a redovisningskonsult to kind of know it, and then just go, hey, I want to employ you to doing my taxes later on. Can you just help me through this process? And they were super happy to just, they want more people, of course, to pay them to do things. So that was really nice to have that contact right from the start, where I just go, hey, I just fill this in over here. Is that correct? It's yeah, you can do that. Or oh, it just means this. So, you don't need to worry about that or whatever. Just to kind of have someone to have that conversation with. Of course, you can go directly to Skatteverket or Werksamt. I don't know how quick they are on answering, but that was really more of a kind of a comfort thing for me to go through the process.
Okay. All right, brilliant. So a question that I've got here from Leonardo, I may be able to help with it as well, but I want to hear your guys, if you've got any experience with this. I'm not even sure myself if you do or not. So is it possible to have more than one person working under the same company /AB? Does anyone here have any experience or have...
Yes, I have experience with that, and that's perfectly fine. It's no problem. It basically works the exact same thing. And if this person works for your company for 3 months or more in Sweden, and there's some other details, but then you can get tax benefits for the first 2 or 3 employees even. So it's perfectly fine.
Perfect. Nice, simple answer there for you, Leonardo. And a question from Roger that I think links back to what someone said earlier. I'm not too sure who it was, but how do you do work-life balance? So do you take holidays when your clients' employees have national holidays, or do you take large chunks of holidays between contracts?
So I just kind of started this 1 month before the Swedish holidays start, and I'm I'm Swedish, so I do it the Swedish way. So I just go in and put in a big chunk of 5 weeks in summer, because the rest of the year is shit here. Yeah, it's, to me, it was just no problem really with King. I just told them, I looked a little bit in the calendar of my direct reports and the people around me who were doing similar work that maybe could cover for me, and just kind of see if we could adjust a little bit to make sure that we covered as much as possible. But really, most people take vacations about the same time over here, at least. So it wasn't really a problem. I just told them I'm not going to be coming in these 5 weeks, and they just went, okay, just don't invoice us for them then. It wasn't really harder than that.
Yeah, same experience for me.
And the opposite for me, actually. So as you said, in Sweden, there is 1 or 1.5 month of summer when everyone takes days off or companies are closed, but here in Poland, we don't have such stuff. So schools and kindergartens are closed. So you have to do something with your kid. But then everyone mostly work, except, for example, 2 weeks that you go somewhere with your family for vacations. So I just set up my 2 weeks regardless, similarly to my company when most of the employees will be out. So we can all be out on the same time, and everyone will be on the same page when we will be back, and everyone will be working on the project still.
Okay, brilliant. A question that I want to jump in with quickly. It's not like directly been asked in the chat, but it was mentioned by somebody. I don't know if anyone has got any experience that they can share. So somebody said before setting up your own company to try freelancing, somebody recommends having their invoicing done through an external company. Has anyone here done that at all, or have they always had their own AB?
Always had my own AB.
Always had your own AB? Anyone
Same
else?
for me.
Yep. It's just easier to set it up than to find a person you trust enough, huh?
Okay, I'll jump in there then. So, as brokers here at Evolution, we can't recommend whether you set up your own AB or use an umbrella company. It's completely up to you and your circumstances. If you are a first-time freelancer and you're nervous about doing the taxes and all the paperwork, etc., which I completely understand, then going through an umbrella could be a good option for you because they handle all of that and you just have to sort your timesheet and then just work, basically. So it could be a good option for you. Having your own AB does make things a lot easier and you save yourself some money.
It's quite beneficial to have your own AB, and as I said, I haven't tried going through a invoicing company or anything like that, but you miss on a lot of the really good stuff about consulting or freelancing if you do it that way. I mean, you can manage your taxes and your salary in a much better way. You can buy things to your company, like if you need a computer or anything, you can buy that through the company, and you can. It's just things that because at least in Sweden, your taxes get higher the more salary you take out, and you don't really have the option to kind of even out your salary in the same way if you go through a company. But if you have an AB, you can kind of, I'm going to be paying myself over vacation. But if you go through an invoicing company that kind of does it for you, you just get everything as a chunk. I think, at least, correct me if I'm wrong here. I haven't done this before, but that and they pay you everything in salary immediately, which means that you pay a lot more taxes than you need to if you just kind of even it out over more months, or take it out as a, what do you call it? Utdelning. I don't even know what the English word is.
Dividend, you mean?
Yeah, dividends.
Perfect. Okay. On to the next question then, and this also covers a second question that Aitor asked. What would be your advice for first-time freelancers? And Martina, I'm going to come to you first for that one.
Don't be afraid. Because I also was working only on work contracts, permanent contracts in Poland, and then I really wanted to start working outside Poland because I knew like my options in Poland are limited. And yeah, just like this first step is hardest, and then you can like there are no boundaries basically when you can work remotely during those days. You can work for everyone and make your dream job.
Brilliant. Ksenia, you got any thoughts on that one?
Yeah, sure. I'm a bit more practical. I would say that it's very important to find a selling angle and your selling angle. Because a beginner freelancer might think that, oh, there are these 33 skills that I have and I should list them all on my price list because they're all super valuable. Yes, you're right, they are valuable. And the fact is that you're going to use all the 33 of them. But, for example, my strongest skill and thing I do every day is actually competitive strategy. That's what I do. I see the whole market as a sort of a very multiplayer chessboard, and I win that game consistently. The problem is that when I try to explain it to potential customers that I do competitive strategy, they didn't get it. And after that, I kind of started listening actively to what were the problems of potential customers and what were the pain points. And they just kept repeating the same thing. I'm not sure why my user acquisition doesn't work. On my to-do list, maybe 10% changed of the tasks that I do. I still do basically competitive strategy and tactics. I just call it user acquisition now. And this is what I call finding a selling angle. Yeah, there are very many things that I know how to do, but it's just one pain point that really matters.
Mark, do you want to jump in for your advice for first-time freelancers?
Yeah, to programmers, just do it. It's so much better life. So, and I was scared about all the technicalities beforehand. That really held me back for a while. Like, I'm running the company. Am I really gonna do that? I had done like the sole proprietorship, but that's very different in terms of taxes, and way simpler. But running a proper AB here in Sweden is a bit more challenging than the sole proprietorship, and that held me back. But yeah, as soon as I decided to go for it, and I realized that there was nothing to be scared of at all. It's just, don't let your fear of the unknown stop you, basically.
Christopher?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'll just fall back to what I said before. It's and that's just because my own burn that I had 10 years ago. It's quite comfortable to have someone that could, at least if you're like me and feel that the bureaucracy is a little bit scary, get someone early on that can answer your questions and comfort you and can help you through that process. That was a lot, made a big difference for me. And I think both Ksenia and Mark said very valuable things. Also, on what Ksenia said it's kind of good for you to be very clear about what the exact values you are that you bring to companies, so you can sell yourself. Because in this case, it might not always be that the company is out with an ad and going like, hey, we're looking for someone that can do this. It might be also you that needs to be much more selling and go and advertise yourself. And then it's very good if you are very aware of the value you bring to companies and can bring to companies.
Brilliant. Thank you all for your insights there. A question that we've got from George. What were some unexpected negatives to freelancing when you first started, and how did you remedy them? How did you fix those? Has anyone got any negatives that they can think of straight away?
Not really, actually. Thinking about it, there was nothing unexpected negative, no.
I mean, yeah, the perfect answer is no. It's been smooth sailing the whole way through, and there's been absolutely no negatives at all.
I can't make anything up. No, there was nothing.
No, I do have one. When I just started out, I did this mistake of not figuring out how to qualify my clients. Because as a freelancer, there is nobody to delegate to. So if my work as a marketer, and I'm pretty sure Martina will agree here, we need an infrastructure. We need people who are gonna make the videos and shoot the footage and do the CG and do the voiceovers and do the localizations. We need those people. This is the infrastructure, and there are some things that we can't do ourselves. So what I didn't do right in my first contract is figure out if the client has everything I need for me to deliver them the maximum of my value. So by now, like for instance, the first question that I asked at any introduction, that is about sales. The first question I ask is like, okay, what's your influencer strategy? What's your influencer budget? Because I know that a company that doesn't do influencer marketing in my field will not profit from user acquisition in the first place. So if they step into going like, yeah, we want to make paid ads, I say like, you have to do both simultaneously. And I think this was the first negative when I figured out that, yeah, there's, it's not like my corporate job was where there would be a department where I could go and borrow a person. If there's nobody doing localization, I just can't deliver.
I have one thing that is kind of, it's a positive, and it's mostly a positive actually. But if you handle it wrong, it's a negative. And this might also sound like a humble brag, but I want to say that it's when you kind of go out of full employment, where you usually are restricted to taking on more than one task, or like you're restricted to work with only the company that employs you. Now, as a contractor, you can take on as many jobs as you can handle, basically. And when you get in a lot of really interesting opportunities in front of you, it's very easy to say yes too much, and that might actually be a good tip for new starters as well. Like, practice saying no, because at least right now, as I said, in the games industry, there's a lot of people screaming for good talent, and you're probably going to get more interesting opportunities than you can handle, and you're going to want to say yes to all of them. Don't do that. Pace yourself.
On the other hand, I have a comment to what just Christopher said. Yes, I would also say learn how to say no, because, for example, if there is a contract that doesn't suit you, but there is one and you're like, yeah, I'm gonna take it because I'm free at the moment and I have to do something. Think twice if you really want to do something that doesn't make you happy and won't fulfill your abilities, or you want to wait for opportunity that fits you. And on the other hand, if the contract that you started doesn't really fit what you expected, also you can say no, because contract works both ways, right? You can terminate it as well as your company can terminate it. So bear that in mind as well.
Brilliant. So one more question from me then, and I'll then just go through any final questions that we have from the chat. And I can see people replying now. Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Ksenia. This is a bit of a could go on for ages, this question, so I'm going to say try and keep it relatively brief. So thoughts on the gaming industry currently? And obviously we all know the gaming industry, a lot is happening constantly, so there's a lot to be said.
Actually, this is one of the reasons that actually as well that it felt like a good time to go into consulting, just because there are so many exciting things happening, and it feels like it's like just about to explode into even more. Like the gaming industry feels like it's at the verge of becoming much bigger and much wider in what it is, in its kind of definition. You know, you got the film and games coming much closer to each other. You got like mobile and console coming much closer to each other. You got VR really taking off. You got the NFT stuff going on. You got the metaverse. It's so much really cool stuff that it feels like it's just taking off. And it's just like it feels like an interesting time to be quite agile in being able to move between different interesting companies and missions and contracts, and also on top of that, I think also that because there's a lot of scares about like a recession now in newspapers and stuff like that, and I think just on the games industry today, just because there's constantly more people playing games and we're reaching different demographics all the time, and it just feels like the gaming industry is going to do quite well even if we hit a recession, and that's another thought I have on the gaming industry right now that feels quite relevant to maybe bring up. I mean, it's if people lose their jobs, they're going to want to spend their time on something else, and a lot of people enjoy games. It might be a little bit macabre to talk about like that, but I'm quite. It feels like a fairly good industry to be in if we're heading for worse times.
I absolutely jumped that bandwagon. Actually, this was my first thing. Like, recession is coming. Great times are coming for the video games industry, because for any digital entertainment, recession is great. On one hand side, people have less money to spend on luxury vacations on a tropical island. Just can't afford that anymore. On the other hand side, they have more need than ever to be carried away from their troubles, at least for a couple of hours, which makes a great opportunity, especially for indie games. It might be a hit for the AAAs, the $70 game. I understand why it's a hit, because $70 is a lot. But for indies, there will be new names that will come out soaring from this recession. And yeah, I think Christopher is absolutely correct here. It's a very good time to become a freelancer in video games.
I should add on top of that as well that I actually, the last time I did freelancing was a result of the whole Lehman Brothers thing, and there was a lot of layoffs in the companies, and that's kind of a lot. It sounds like it might be scary to go into consulting now because it's easy to get rid of a consultant, but also studios can also become afraid of hiring because they're unsure of their future, and then it's easier to get rid of a consultant. That might actually work in your favor as a consultant in those times. It can go a little bit both ways there.
Yeah, definitely. Mark, do you have any thoughts on the gaming industry currently?
Well, while I don't disagree with anything that's been said before, for me personally, it doesn't always move in the right direction because I might be getting old, but I like games the most. Like at the end of the 90s, early 2000s, the games from that era, that's what works the best for me. And they're relatively simple. They're not very complicated. You can't develop your character. You just walk single player through a world, and that's what you do. And nowadays games are getting too complicated for my taste personally. It's my like old school games is really what I like. So I'm always looking for those and trying to recreate that feeling in whatever projects I develop myself, because I just love that. And yeah, nowadays games are going in a different direction than my preference. So
it's a lot about building community around your game now and get players in and get them to stay. And I think that's it tends to make many games feel a little bit bloated. I can agree with that. It might also be one of those things that since a lot of games are a lot of studios are trying to achieve that now, that might also be the thing that kind of has the winner, like this. If you can only afford to buy one really good $70 game, then you might want to buy something that there is a good community, or something you can keep playing and buy content for a long time, or get free updates or whatever. So that might also be something interesting to that might determine how it goes if we enter a recession for different companies.
We are coming up to nearly the end of this webinar, guys. But Martina, just before we do, what are your thoughts on the gaming industry at the minute?
For me, it's just constantly evolving. From the trends I've seen on this year GDC, which is Game Developers Conference, the hottest topics are metaverse, the NFT, the whole blockchain, and I would say also esport that is growing, because people right now, like esport is getting like really big and super real. So there are a few new things. We don't know what direction will they take in the future, but the industry is growing, and it's growing super rapidly with the technology that we can now access. Like literally everyone can build a game from scratch just by using free tools online. So I think we are in a good point of having an opportunity to see this growth and to learn from other people as well.
That's a really great point. How accessible it's become to make games and becoming like all the time. That's a really good point.
Yeah, definitely. And like you said earlier, Christopher, you don't want the conversation to become macabre at any point, but obviously with probably impending recession coming up, we just have to look back at the pandemic a little bit, because the gaming industry did brilliantly, you know. Again, a bit macabre, but it did. That's just the facts of it. There is an interesting question I want to ask, and we've only got a couple of minutes really, but could be an interesting one. NFTs in games, obviously that was mentioned slightly. At the minute, I would say, and I think it's fairly noticeable, they have a fairly bad reputation among gamers. Does anyone here have any thoughts whether that's a temporary trend, or is it irreversible and they're always going to be looked upon as a negative thing for the gaming industry? Does anyone have any thoughts on it?
That's a big prediction. Gamers will treat anyone well as long as they are treated well back. But just look at the communication around NFTs. What NFTs are saying that finally you're going to play to make money, profit, to make something. That's not why people play games. People play to play. And taking away the entertainment out of it and replacing it with grind is just immoral.
On the other hand, I would say that the trend with P2E, which is pay to earn games, will be growing because people will see the opportunity to together, like how to combine entertainment with somehow getting some money out of it, and that's also connected to blockchain and NFT. So like all of those technologies are relatively new. So I would say we should observe and see where the trend will go.
Okay.
Yeah,
I think. Sorry, go on, Ksenia.
now that you mention it, indeed, there is also a very big flare of gambling, and the border between traditional gaming and gambling is, of course, very blurred. But we cannot deny that anything that is when you play for any other motivation rather than playing, monetary motivation, that turns into gambling. And there will be always people who like to gamble, and there's nothing wrong with that, as long as that's transparent and they are adult people who can make that decision for themselves.
Okay, brilliant. I thought I'd get your thoughts and opinions on that one because it is becoming more prevalent in the gaming industry. As someone's mentioned in the comments, jobs for NFTs in gaming are becoming, quite a big thing. There's lots out there, but they do have that reputation currently. Be interesting to see anyway. One to keep an eye on for everyone interested in gaming. So, yeah, I want to say thank you everyone who's participated here for your time. I think we've had some fantastic insights, and the people watching would be very grateful as well. If anyone in the chat has any further questions, don't hesitate to reach out to me. I can always ask everyone here who's participated, or I may be able to answer yourself. But that is about all for this webinar. So thank you, everyone. Really appreciate it. And we will see you all next time. Cheers, guys.
Thank you.